I never expected my life to unravel in a Beverly Hills mansion filled with marble and secrets. The moment I pushed open the heavy oak door balancing my cleaning supplies, the little girl with my eyes and Carter's smile raced across the foyer and wrapped her small arms around my legs. "Mommy, you came back for me," she sobbed, and the air left my lungs as Carter Harrington, the woman who broke my heart 5 years ago, stood frozen across the room, her perfect face draining of color. The crystal vase on the entry table wobbled from the impact of her dropped phone, and the crash echoed like a gunshot through the sunlit space. Staff in crisp uniforms froze mid-step, their eyes darting between me, the stranger in the plain gray maid outfit, and the child who refused to let go. Sophia. That was her name, I realized in a rush of memory that hit harder than any regret I had carried for half a decade. She looked exactly like the photos Carter had texted me in secret during the pregnancy, the ones I had deleted in tears the night everything ended. My knees buckled, but I stayed upright, clutching the mop handle like a lifeline. I was here for a one-day deep clean gig booked through the agency because my rent was 3 weeks late, and the coffee shop shifts barely covered groceries. The client address had been listed as Harrington Residence, no first names, no warnings. Now here I was face to face with the only woman I had ever loved and the daughter I had never been allowed to hold. Carter recovered first, her voice low and urgent as she crossed the marble in 3 strides. "Everyone out now." She waved off the housekeeper and the gardener who had appeared at the side door. "Mark will be home soon, just handle the pool service." Her husband, the man she had married 3 months after she told me I was a phase that needed to disappear for the sake of her future. Sophia clung tighter, burying her face in my thigh, her small body shaking with the kind of certainty only a 6-year-old could have. I stroked her hair without thinking, the motion automatic from the nights I had dreamed of this impossible moment. When the room cleared, Carter shut the tall double doors, her back pressed against the wood like she could hold the world out. "Ember." The name came out as a whisper that cracked on the second syllable. "How did you find us?" "I did not find you," I answered, my voice steadier than I felt. "The agency sent me. I needed the money. I never would have come if I knew." Sophia looked up, then her blue eyes so much like Carter's, but the shape, the lashes, they were mine. She smiled through tears and said again, "Mommy, I missed you." The words sliced through every defense I had built since the day Carter's father had sat me down in his downtown office and slid an envelope across the desk. $100,000 to vanish. To sign papers promising never to contact them. To let Carter build the perfect life with the perfect cover marriage while I raised nothing but ghosts. I had taken the money because I was 27, broke and terrified of destroying the woman I loved more than my own future. Now standing in this palace of lies, I felt the old rage and the old love twist together until I could not tell which was stronger. Carter stepped closer, her designer silk blouse trembling at the collar. "We need to talk. Alone. Before Mark gets back." She glanced at Sophia, who was now holding my hand like she would never let go. The child had my stubborn chin, my determined grip. DNA did not lie, even if everything else in this house did. I nodded once and followed Carter down a hallway lined with original art, each step heavier than the last. Behind us, Sophia called out, "Don't go, Mommy," and the sound lodged in my chest like a promise I had never been allowed to make. In the private study lined with leather books and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the infinity pool, Carter closed the door and turned the lock. Her hands shook as she poured 2 glasses of water from a crystal decanter, but she did not drink. 5 years, Ember. 5 years, and you walk back in like this. I set my supplies down carefully, the bucket clunking against the Persian rug. "I did not walk in. Your daughter did." "Our daughter." The words hung between us, raw and undeniable. Carter flinched like I had slapped her, but she did not deny it. The IVF, the egg donation, the months we spent planning in whispered phone calls from hotel rooms, everything had been real until her family found the messages and threatened to cut her off completely. She had chosen them. Chosen the money, the status, the safety of a straight marriage to Mark Harrington, whose tech fortune kept the lights on in this $20 million estate. I had chosen survival. Now the past sat in the next room calling my name, and neither of us could pretend anymore. Carter sank into the velvet chair, her posture finally breaking. "What do we do now?" I looked at her, the woman who still owned every corner of my heart, and answered the only truth I had left. "We face it. Because hiding almost killed me once, and I will not let it kill her." The afternoon light shifted across the room, casting long shadows that felt like judgment. Outside, the pool filter hummed a steady rhythm that matched the pounding in my temples. Carter reached for my hand but stopped short, her fingers hovering in the space between us. The air was thick with every unsaid apology, every sacrificed night, every choice that had led us here. I pulled my cleaning cart closer, needing something solid to hold on to while the ground beneath my carefully rebuilt life cracked wide open. Carter stared at me across the mahogany desk, her green eyes glistening with tears she refused to let fall. "You cannot be here, Ember. Mark will be home in an hour and Sophia has therapy at 4. The words came out clipped, the same tone she had used the night she ended us. I crossed my arms, fighting the urge to shake her until the mask cracked. Therapy for what exactly? For missing the mother she never got to know. Carter looked away, her jaw tight. She thinks her mother is in heaven. That is what we told her. The lie tasted like ash in my mouth. I donated the egg. I signed the papers. I walked away so you could carry her and give her this life. And now she calls me mommy like she has known me every day of her 6 years. Flashbacks hit me then, uninvited and merciless. The tiny apartment in Silver Lake where we had first kissed after a charity gala Carter had dragged me to as her +1. The way her laugh had filled the room when I told her I was terrified of loving a woman who could buy the building we stood in. The late nights planning our future, the two of us against the world, until her father discovered the relationship and issued the ultimatum. Choose the family fortune or choose the cleaner girl with no pedigree. Carter had chosen the fortune, but not before we created Sophia in a quiet clinic in Pasadena. My eggs, her body, anonymous donor sperm. A family built in secret and buried in lies. She stood up, pacing the length of the study, her heels clicking like countdowns. "I can pay you again. Double. Just leave and never come back." The offer stung worse than the first time. "I am not for sale, Carter. Not anymore. Sophia is my daughter too, and she deserves the truth." Carter stopped, her face pale. "The truth would destroy her. My parents would disown me completely. Mark would take her in the divorce. You think the world is kind to women like us? 2 mothers. No father on the birth certificate once they dig." I stepped closer until I could smell her perfume, the same one she wore the night we conceived Sophia, in a haze of hope. "The world is not kind, but lying to a child is crueler." She reached out then, her fingers brushing my wrist, and for one heartbeat the years melted. The spark was still there, buried under layers of pain and sacrifice. I pulled away because touching her now would break me all over again. We stood in silence, the grandfather clock in the corner ticking away the minutes until her perfect world collided with mine. Finally Carter whispered, "I never stopped loving you. But love was not enough then, and it may not be enough now." I nodded, the weight of every decision we had made pressing on my chest. "Then we find out what is enough. Starting with telling Mark the truth before he walks in and sees his stepdaughter calling the maid mommy." The door to the study opened a crack and Sophia peeked in, her small face lighting up when she saw me. "Mommy, can we play?" Carter scooped her up, but the child reached for me over her shoulder. I took her hand because walking away again was no longer an option. As we walked back to the foyer, I felt Carter watching me, her gaze heavy with fear and something deeper. Regret maybe. Or the first stirrings of courage. Outside, the sound of Mark's Mercedes pulling into the driveway cut through the tension like a blade. Carter straightened her spine, the society wife mask sliding back into place, but her hand brushed mine one last time, a silent plea. Mark entered, tall and polished, in his tailored suit, briefcase in hand. He took in the scene, his wife the maid and his daughter clinging to the stranger, and his brow furrowed. "Everything all right here?" Carter forced a smile. "Just a new cleaner, honey. Sophia is being dramatic as usual." But Sophia would not be silenced. She pointed at me and said loudly, "This is my real mommy." Mark's laugh died in his throat when he saw the look on Carter's face. The air in the mansion grew thick with the scent of impending ruin. I stood there, mop in hand, heart hammering, knowing the test we would soon need would change everything forever. Mark set his briefcase down slowly, his eyes narrowing at Carter, then at me. "What is she talking about?" Carter laughed, a brittle sound that fooled no one. "Kids say the darndest things. She probably saw a cartoon this morning." Sophia shook her head, stubborn as the day we chose her donor. "No, Daddy. She is Mommy. I remember her voice." Mark looked at me, then really looked the way men like him assess threats. "You are the cleaner. Ember, right? The agency sent your file." I nodded, not trusting my voice. He turned back to Carter, his tone sharpening. "We are doing a paternity test tomorrow. Just to be sure." Carter went white, but she nodded. "Of course, darling. Whatever you need." Later that night, after Mark had taken Sophia to bed and the house staff had gone home, Carter found me in the guest quarters the agency had arranged for the overnight deep clean. She closed the door softly, her silk robe whispering against the carpet. "He suspects something. The test will show he is not the father. We use donor sperm embryo." My heart raced. "And then what?" "We do another test. Mine. Because Sophia is biologically mine, and that will open every door we nailed shut 5 years ago." Carter sat on the edge of the bed, her hands twisting in her lap. "My family will never forgive me. They already forced me to marry him to save the company image. If this comes out, the board will vote me out. The charities, the galas, everything." I sat beside her, close enough to feel her warmth but not touching. "Remember the night we decided to have her? You said you wanted a piece of me to carry even if the world never knew." She closed her eyes, tears slipping free. "I did. I still do. But the price? The price is Sophia growing up in the middle of a scandal. I took her hand then because the ache was too much. Or she grows up knowing both her mothers loved her enough to fight. The choice is ours, Carter. Not your father's. Not Mark's. Ours." The next morning the clinic car arrived discreetly. Swabs were taken in the sunroom while Sophia played with blocks unaware. Mark paced the terrace on his phone, already consulting lawyers. Carter and I waited in the library, the silence broken only by the occasional sniffle from her. When the nurse left, Carter turned to me, her voice raw. "If the test shows what we know it will, I may lose everything." I looked at her, the woman who had once chosen me before fear won. "Then we built something new. Together." She did not answer, but she did not pull away when I brushed a strand of hair from her face, the gesture small but seismic after years of nothing. 2 days later the results arrived via courier. Mark opened the envelope first, his face hardening as he read. "Not a match." He slammed the paper down, staring at Carter. "Who is the father?" Carter met my eyes across the room, and for the first time in 5 years she chose truth over safety. "There is no father, Mark. Not in the way you think." The room exploded with his shouts, accusations flying like shrapnel. I stood silent, letting the storm rage, because the real test, the one that would expose us both, was still coming. Sophia watched from the stairs, her small hands gripping the banister, and in that moment I knew no matter the cost I would never let her call another woman mommy again. Mark's voice echoed off the high ceilings as he demanded answers. Carter stood her ground for the first time, her shoulders squared. "The child is not yours biologically. We used a donor." He laughed bitterly. "A donor? And the maid just happens to look like her." Carter glanced at me, the plea in her eyes clear. "Do not do this." But I was done hiding. I stepped forward. "Because she is my daughter. Biologically." Mark stared between us, the pieces clicking into place with ugly precision. "You two. All this time." Carter tried to speak, but he cut her off. "My lawyers will handle custody. You will not see her again, either of you." The next week was a blur of slammed doors and whispered arguments. Carter's parents flew in from New York, their private jet landing at Burbank. Her mother cornered me in the kitchen while I was packing my supplies. The agency had already been called to reassign me. "You ruined her life once. Do not do it again." The words were ice cold, wrapped in old money privilege. I met her gaze. "I gave her a child. You gave her lies." Her father offered another check, bigger this time. I tore it in half and dropped the pieces on the marble. Carter watched from the doorway, her face torn between the daughter she had carried and the woman she had loved. Sophia kept finding me. In the garden behind the pool house she would run to me with drawings of 2 mommies and a big house. Each hug chipped away at the walls Carter had built to protect her world. One night Carter came to my small apartment in Echo Park, the first time she had ever been there. She looked out of place in her cashmere coat, surrounded by my thrift store furniture. "I cannot lose her, Ember. But I cannot lose you either. Not again." We sat on my worn couch, the space between us shrinking until our hands found each other. The kiss was soft, tentative, the first in 5 years, and it tasted like every sacrifice we had made. But morning brought reality. Mark filed for divorce, citing fraud. Tabloids started sniffing around after a staff member leaked something. Carter's charity board called an emergency meeting. She came home one evening, her eyes red. "They want me to step down. To issue a statement denying everything." I held her while she cried, the weight of her old life pressing down. I whispered against her hair. "Then we tell the truth. All of it. The egg donation, the love, the choice to hide." She pulled back, searching my face. And if they take her? We fight. Together. The decision settled between us like a vow renewed. The confrontation with Mark the next day was brutal. He accused Carter of betrayal, of perversion, of destroying their family. She stood tall for the first time in years. I destroyed nothing. I protected her the only way I knew how. Now I am choosing honesty. He stormed out, promising court battles that would drag our names through every gossip site, and Carter turned to me, exhausted but resolute. I am scared. I pulled her close. So am I. But for the first time we are scared together. The courtroom in downtown LA felt colder than the marble floors in the mansion. Carter sat beside me, her hand finding mine under the table, while lawyers argued over custody and biological rights. Her parents watched from the gallery, their faces masks of disapproval. The judge listened as the DNA results were read aloud, confirming I was the genetic mother and Carter the birth mother. No father listed. Mark's lawyer painted us as deceivers who had tricked a good man. Our lawyer countered with love and sacrifice. Sophia waited in a side room with a guardian ad litem, her future hanging on the words of strangers. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited, cameras flashing. Carter's phone buzzed nonstop with messages from old friends distancing themselves. One board member texted that her invitation to the gala had been revoked. She read it aloud in the car, her voice steady. I built that charity from nothing. Now they act like I am contagious. I squeezed her hand. Then we build a new one. For families like ours. She smiled for the first time in weeks, the expression tired but real. At night in my apartment we talked for hours about the past. The nights we had spent dreaming of raising Sophia openly, the fear that had made us choose secrecy. Carter admitted the pressure from her family had felt like drowning. I admitted taking the money had felt like selling my soul. We cried together and held each other through the nightmares where Sophia called us strangers. One evening she looked at me across the kitchen table and said, I want her to know both of us. Every day. Not in secret. The words were a turning point. Her mother called one afternoon begging Carter to reconsider. Think of the scandal. The trust fund. Carter hung up mid-sentence and turned to me. I am done choosing their approval over our family. The betrayal from her own blood hurt, but it also freed her. We spent the weekend with Sophia under supervised visits, the child beaming, as she introduced us to her stuffed animals as Mommy Ember and Mommy Carter. Each visit healed something deep inside me. The judge's decision came faster than expected. Joint custody with mandatory counseling. Mark received visitation, but the primary home would be with us. The ruling cited the child's clear bond and our willingness to co-parent openly. Carter cried in the hallway after, and I held her, letting the relief wash over us both. But the cost was real. Her family cut ties. Old friends stopped calling. The mansion was sold in the divorce settlement. We moved into a modest house in the hills, small enough for three but big enough for truth. The moving truck pulled away from the new house, leaving us standing on the lawn, 3 suitcases and a lifetime of choices. Sophia ran between us, grabbing one hand from each of her mothers. Can we plant flowers? Carter laughed, the sound light and free for the first time in years. Yes, baby. All the colors. I watched them, the woman I had loved in secret, and the child we had created in hope, and felt the pieces of my heart finally settle. The scandal had faded from the tabloids, replaced by newer gossip, but the whispers in certain circles remained. Carter had lost board seats and invitations, but she had gained mornings making pancakes and evenings reading bedtime stories with me beside her. We faced the hard conversations too. Sophia asked why Daddy was not here, and we told her the truth in age-appropriate words. 2 mommies who love each other very much. She accepted it with the uncomplicated grace of childhood. My own family back in Ohio called, offering support, shocked but proud. Carter's parents sent one final letter disowning her completely. She read it once, then burned it in the backyard fire pit. The smoke rose into the California sky, carrying away the last of her old life. One night after Sophia was asleep, we sat on the porch, swing the city lights twinkling below. Carter rested her head on my shoulder. I was so afraid of losing everything. I almost did. But I gained more. I kissed her temple, the gesture natural now that hiding was over. We both paid the price. But look what we built. The swing creaked gently, the night air cool against our skin. For the first time we talked about the future openly. Another child maybe. A foundation for LGBTQ families. A life without shadows. The road had been paved with betrayal and sacrifice, but every step had led here. Ember and Carter no longer hidden. Mothers side by side. When the truth about our love and our daughter finally came out, destroying the world Carter had built, was it the right choice to embrace who we were, or should we have kept the secret forever to protect the child from the judgment of society?